met, I'll act.
Has Mika Whaitiri broken those expectations?
Oh, look, I'm not going to predetermine the outcome of an investigation that's happening now, and so that's why we've said that work needs to be done, and I won't make any further comment until it has.
Are you aware that Mika Whaitiri has a history of this sort of behaviour?
As I've said, I've put in place a process now. I'm waiting for an investigation to be completed by Ministerial Services. That's appropriate. I need to allow natural justice to apply here, so I won't be making any comment until that's completed.
Do you know when we're likely to get a result of that investigation?
No, I have tried to seek an indication and I don't have one as yet. My hope is that it will be dealt with as quickly as possible.
Does Labour monitor staff turnover in its offices?
Yes.
If these claims are true, what sort of future does he have as a minister or an MP?
Yeah, and I don't want to get into speculation as yet or hypotheticals. I want the investigation to be completed and I'll make decisions based on that.
In the past week though, Prime Minister, you've had Claire Curran go from Cabinet, business confidence is dropping, and now Mika Whaitiri. Are your ministers
It's
up
called
to
being in government.
Have you ruled out involving police in the investigation?
Look, that's not a matter for me.
How long do you expect this investigation to take?
Look, my hope is that it will be dealt with as quickly as possible, within the realms, of course, of making sure that we deal with all parties fairly. But that is a matter that's squarely with Ministerial Services rather than with me.
When you monitor confirm what day the incident took place?
Look, I do want to leave all of that for the work that's being undertaken rather than commenting on the issues or the incident.
How have you described the staff turnover in her offices
and
also other ministers?
Again, I'm leaving this to be completed by Ministerial Services. Once I've completed their report, then I'll make a decision on how it would be managed.
What's the balance that you're trying to achieve though in terms of, not being too soft and not being too hard? Because a lot of people are starting to say that you're too soft now. I mean, do you agree with that?
What I'm balancing here is principles of natural justice. As soon as I found out about this issue, I took action to make contact, of course, with the Minister. She offered up to stand aside whilst this investigation takes place. That is the right thing to do. And once we have the report completed, then I will make a decision on how to deal with it. But of course, it's only fair that we look into it properly first. On the matter of Minister Curran, she has been demoted from Cabinet. That is a significant price to pay.
There have been reports that the Minister manhandled a person out of an office. Are you aware of that?
I'm not going to comment on an investigation while it's being undertaken. I'll wait until it's completed before I comment.
Potentially one fewer women in the executive. Is this a bit of a blow to gender balance?
Again, that makes an assumption that predetermines the outcome of the investigation, and I do want to leave that process to run its course first.
Do you think that Labour's management training needs to be bolstered?
Again, I'll await the feedback that I get from Ministerial Services, and of course, just generally, of course, we seek guidance, as any employer does, from those who work across those issues to make sure that we're always performing as the public would expect us to.
What kind of training do they go through though?
Again,
ministers, and what sort of happens when they get the
again,
job?
many of our staff, of course, have already been managing people for a long time before they come into these roles.
The former Prime Minister Helen Clark has said that people would have rolled under her leadership around the summer camps issue. What do you make of that?
Oh, and look, we are different leaders. That issue at that time I dealt with as I saw fit. As I'm dealing with these issues now, as I see fit. I'm entirely comfortable with the decisions that I've made.
Is there any specific training for ministers? Is there any specific training?
That will vary office by office.
But there isn't a process?
They do have support from Ministerial Services on employment matters.
Just going back to Nikki, how does this look when the government is dealing with violence in society?
Again, the reason that we have acted swiftly is we need to make sure that we hold ourselves to a high standard. The Minister offered up to stand aside to cooperate, absolutely. Now I'm awaiting the findings of the work by Ministerial Services, and it wouldn't be appropriate to comment any further until that's done.
What is your message to your ministers in light of this issue being raised?
Oh, look, my message is a consistent one, and it's regardless of any incident or at any specific time. They know my expectations are high. They know that we have a standard that New Zealanders expect of us. We're in office, we're there to represent them. That isn't something that I share just at any one-off caucus meeting. It's a constant theme amongst our team.
Do you have faith in your remaining ministers?
Absolutely. And I continue to hold high expectations of all of my team, and they know that.
On another matter, do you support Minister Twyford's proposal to step in and create 2 sets of planning rules in Auckland, one for Auckland and one for the government that overrides the unitary plan?
Yeah, I think that there's an acknowledgement amongst local government, who we are continuing to work closely with, that there is a high demand for housing and that we have to do all we can, both at central and local government level, to meet the public's expectation. You've already seen some acknowledgement by Phil Goff that there is more that we can do. We do want to work together as we roll out those plans, though.
But do you as Prime Minister have confidence in Auckland Council to deliver on the housing goals and the unitary plan that's theirs to deliver?
I think that they are operating under constraints, as has central government in the past. We want to work alongside them to remove some of those constraints so that we can make sure that we are meeting the growing population in Auckland. And from what I've seen from Mayor Goff, he accepts that as well.
But isn't this a case of Wellington sort of stepping in and imposing its will over the people of Auckland?
No, I don't see it that way, not at all. In fact, from what I've seen of the Mayor's comments, he acknowledges that there is more that we can do collectively to make sure that we meet that housing demand. Yes, consents are up, so some great outcomes there, but we have a housing crisis, so there's even more yet that we need to do.
But wasn't the Super City set up to have one body to coordinate planning and infrastructure for Auckland?
Yes, and since then we've even seen things like housing accords in place, a general acknowledgement that there is more that needs to be done. And actually with some of these large-scale developments, it's a matter of coordination as well. And I know that Council has gone to great lengths to try and improve that. We're there to support them to do that even further.
What do you make about the Minister's attack on NIMBYs? Was that a cheap shot and the kind of sniping Aucklanders can expect tomorrow?
No, that's not how I would describe it. I think he's acknowledging something that councils often have to deal with and that we acknowledge exists. Of course, though, I would separate that out from people who are genuinely advocating on behalf of issues that are important to them in their communities. So I think he was pointing out something different to that again.
But do you share his views on NIMBYs?
My view is that actually there are things that unify us in Auckland. The need to address the housing crisis. And when you drill down to individual neighbourhoods, sometimes that goal gets lost.
But the message seems to be from the Minister anyway that Auckland can't do its job properly, so we're going to step in and do it for you.
No, I think we have a constructive relationship with Auckland. I think the Minister would say the same, and I don't think he'd want his comments characterised in that way.
Well, what's constructive about overriding the rules in the unitary plan to get your own way?
And yet we have had situations where that has happened to date. And yet I think from the conversations I've had with Minister Twyford, he is still working closely with Local Government New Zealand on these proposals, which are yet to go to Cabinet.
I'm not aware of any instances where the government's overridden the unitary plan.
Well, the special housing areas, in a way, did allow that expediting of process as well. But as I say, we are still working closely with local government as we develop up the UDA proposals.
Well, who says the government's going to do
I'll just span around if you don't mind. And I refute that suggestion. That's not what we're saying.
I've just got a couple of questions around Nauru. Are you happy with the arrangements for yourself and the media in terms of access around Nauru?
I would have to ask the media for their perspective on any restrictions for them. I've had previous updates and I don't know what the latest is from their perspective. But certainly I'm there for a relatively short space of time, but I'll be using that time as productively as I can. There are a number of issues from a Pacific neighbourhood perspective, but also obviously issues of the day.
So I think there could be rolled out refugees on the island.
Yeah, you know, I've given a lot of thought to this. As I say, I do have a short amount of time there. I do want a perspective from those who are resident on Nauru. We've made an offer as New Zealanders for 150 refugees from across Nauru and Manus, and that still stands. But that having an insight as to the experience on Nauru, of course, is something that I want to seek. But if I meet with individual refugees how do we decide who they would be? Does that raise an expectation that I then can't fulfil for them as an individual? So those are some of the things weighing on my mind.
Prime Minister, can we talk about Chelsea Manning for a minute?
Sure.
Do you agree with the decision to let her in?
It's an operational decision. It's one made by Immigration New Zealand, and that's fitting.
And National says that, she shouldn't have been allowed in because she's a criminal. But, she exposed civilian deaths caused by the US military. So isn't she more of a hero, really, than a criminal?
Oh, look, regardless of how anyone chooses to characterise an individual who's making an application to come into New Zealand, ultimately Immigration New Zealand will make a call based on the information they have in front of them, and that's as it should be.
Do you think that it'll affect our relationship with the US?
No, I don't.
Anything?
No, I don't.
Prime Minister, how do you characterise Chelsea Manning?
Oh, look, my version of these events is that simply, we are a nation that allows free speech. We've seen a number of examples recently where we've acknowledged that in allowing people to share their views. And that's New Zealand. That's as it should be, but we should be consistent about that as well.
But beyond the free speech issue, how do you perceive her?
I think there's interest in what she has to say, and we should allow New Zealanders to hear that.
Right, just on synthetic cannabis,
I'm wrapping after this, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Just the urgently convened group of ministers to look at the scourge of synthetic cannabis. Where's that at, please? Yeah,
and that's something that we're continuing to work on. Look, the issue we have is this is already a product that's banned. When you continue to see such harm being done, when actually Parliament's used the ultimate tool that it has, and it's still not working. Of course, that means we need to look at what we're doing with health, what we're doing via police, and we are still doing that work. Needless to say, we are very aware of the number of deaths it has caused.
Right, and so there's no time frame on that at this stage?
No, look, as there hasn't been in the past, it's an ongoing problem with not very many obvious solutions, given that we have already banned its use in New Zealand. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
It's your luggage, something else.